parking requirements for the project and a variance to exceed density regulations for the proposed multifamily dwelling use. To provide some context for comparison, the former proposal involves the construction of a 7-story mixed-use development featuring commercial space for a grocery store, restaurant, coffee shop, and office uses, 85 residential apartments, and an approximately 500 space parking garage, along with associated site and access improvements. Primary difference is the loss of a grocery store and office space, the addition of approximately 57 apartments, and a downsized parking facility. Project site is comprised of 41 separate parcels and rights of way totaling approximately 1.01 acres. There are 2 paper streets, Tucker Alley and Walker Alley, and a couple small rights of way running through the site. The site featured 4 structures which have been demolished in the past year. A 1,784 square foot stick built structure at 422 Riley Street, constructed in 1900. A 1,476 square foot stick built structure at 430 Riley Street was constructed in 1900. A 1,920 square foot stick built structure at 432 Riley Street, which was constructed in 1900. And a 1,248 square foot brick masonry structure, which was constructed in 1900. Otherwise, there are a couple of informal parking areas along the northern portion of the site. Project site is bounded by Boyd Street to the north, North 5th Street to the east, Riley Street to the south, and Fulton Street to the west. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. At least a week prior to the zoning hearing board meeting, the applicant will submit written agreements, proposals for the car share service and mass transit subsidy they have referenced in their proposal, so that the Planning Bureau has time to review the proposals and ascertain whether they meet the requirements of the zoning code. The applicant will redesign the Riley Street facade to incorporate a second entrance into the retail space further to the west, better activate the southern frontage of the property. The northern frontage of the property will likewise be redesigned to create a more attractive streetscape along the Boyd Street or the Meadow, and to incorporate a secure street level bike parking area. The applicant will install a secure bike parking area between the secondary stairwell and the coffee shop cafe space along the Boyd Street Urban Meadow for use by visitors and staff of businesses on site. The current bike storage is located in the basement, meaning it is largely inaccessible to visitors and business customers. Given the entire site will be paved, the project will need to plant 15 trees per section 7-307.12B of the zoning code. The applicant will coordinate with the city arborist on the selection and location of trees in the surrounding rights of way. And finally, the applicant will coordinate with the Department of Public Works to confirm the appropriate size and location of refuse collection on site. Planning Bureau staff recommend the request be approved for the following reasons. Project proposes infill development that reflects the character of the developing 6th Street corridor to the east in terms of building massing, use, and design, and prospective projects along Riley Street to the west. The location will take advantage of proximity to major corridors, specifically Riley Street and 6th Street, to realize the full value of the project site. And the building will be designed to front Riley Street to ensure the impacts on the residential neighborhood to the north. The project will be topped by a green roof across the full building footprint, incorporating a fairly unique stormwater management element for projects of this size, to reduce impacts on the local stormwater infrastructure and reduce the urban heat island effect generated by new development. And the project will bring significant benefits to the neighborhood, including the removal of blighted buildings, development of vacant lots, the activation of the Boyd Street Urban Meadow, and the addition of units to the housing inventory of the surrounding neighborhood and the city in general. And if the conditions of the Planning Bureau are adopted, the project will have positive impacts on pedestrians and bicyclists and will improve the streetscapes along the public rights of way that surround the site.
Thank you, staff. Could you gentlemen state your name, address, and your relationship to the project?
Yes, good evening. Ambrose Hines. I'm an attorney with Stevens and Lee here at Market Square building across the street. With me is Kevin McGarvey from BL Companies, which is the engineer. Oh, you would have him introduce.
Yes.
So I'm the attorney for the applicant, 400 Riley Street Management LLC.
Kevin McGarvey, civil engineer with BL Companies. We're located 2601 Marketplace, Harrisburg.
Thank you. You gentlemen heard the staff report with the conditions. Are you acceptable of those conditions?
Those conditions would be acceptable.
Okay. Did you want to add anything to the report?
I have nothing to add unless there are questions from the planning commission.
With that, commissioners, I have no questions at this time. And I'll start with Commissioner Jenzik. Any concerns or questions?
No, I think this represents a fairly well detailed plan, the kind of thing we're looking to see when we're making these kind of decisions. So thank you.
Commissioner O'Toole,
No. I echo what Greg said, disappointed to see the vote.
Yeah, I think that at this point, there still may be a grocery component to that. It's just not going to be the size that it was originally intended.
Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Merrick,
No, I don't have any questions either. Yeah, I echo my fellow commissioner comments. Hopefully, some of that commercial space can be put to good use for the community. Otherwise, it's a good project.
with that, I'll go to the public. If for against. I'm sorry, Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Reed.
Well, I guess I shouldn't have anything to say here. Not really too many questions about the plan. I think it's detailed. It makes sense. It looks like all 1-2 bedrooms and a couple of studios. Are we looking at market rate rent? Any chance that you'll be looking at any affordable units in this building?
Yeah, so the proposal right now there would be at least 11 affordable units within the building itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all I have there.
With that, we'll go to the public. If you're for or against this project, please stand and state your name and address. I'll start with, since you're here, with my right. Anyone on my right? That, I think it's pretty straightforward, but commissioners. Get a motion. And second,
I'll second that.
it's been moved and second for approval with the conditions. All those in favor state by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Good luck. Okay, the second item on the agenda, this is a special application for 19.5 West 4th Street. It's zoned downtown center, filed by A. John Cole with Green CREAM, which is the acronym for Consulting and Investing LLC. This is to establish a community engagement center which serves as a networking and business credit space.
So the applicant is proposing to establish a community engagement center which serves as a networking and business growth space, which is a use not specifically prohibited by the zoning code and thus requires a special exception per section 7-303.11B of the zoning code. Property at 19.5 North 4th Street is a 0.04 acre lot with a 3-story, 4,316 square foot brick structure, which was constructed in 1900. Property is bounded by the property at 21 North 4th Street to the north, courtyard at 411 Walnut Street to the east, property of 19 North 4th Street to the south, and North 4th Street to the west. This 3-story attached brick structure features elements of the Italian architectural style. Character defining features include brick facade, the first floor storefront with a prominent cornice featuring large dentils, 2-story oriel window on the second and third floors, and a substantial wooden cornice on the third floor featuring dentils, large ornamental brackets. The rear of the building fronts a unique courtyard within the interior of the block. Main entrance features a recessed entryway flanked by large plate glass windows and features a wooden full-view door topped with a simple transom. Secondary entrance to the right, which features a wooden full-view door topped with a simple transom, is the main window. Fenestration includes the large plate glass storefront windows set above panels and topped with single pane windows on the first floor and 6 1/1 wooden windows at the roof. Structure is topped with a flat rubber roof. Rear of the property fronts a gated courtyard shared by surrounding properties. The structure retains much of its original architectural integrity, as do most of the surrounding structure in the block, and thus it functions as an important feature of the historic and architectural character of the streetscape. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved with the following conditions. Business will have hours of operation limited to 8 AM to 10 PM, Monday through Sunday, as outlined in the supplemental documentation provided by the applicant. Will be potentially adverse impacts from the proposed use on surrounding residents. No alcoholic beverage service or BYOB permit will be permitted on site to ensure the space functions in business capacity. Did not produce the same adverse impacts as recent uses, though occasional events such as Third of the Bird may allow a license. The Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be approved for the following reasons. The applicant has engaged neighborhood stakeholders, including Harrisburg University, regarding potential events and activities on site to ensure that the business functions as a benefit to the local business essential community. Proposed use will occupy a currently vacant space, which was previously operating as a BYOB club, and will help activate the streetscape, enhance the vitality of the block, and provide an incubator for business growth and development while creating multiple impacts on the surrounding residential neighborhood. The proposed use will be similar in character and potential impacts to by right uses permitted in these districts, such as business services, community center, and office uses, meeting the conditions for granting a special exception for use not specifically.
Thank you, staff. Could you state your name, address, and your relationship to the project? Next. You gentlemen heard the staff report with the conditions. Are you acceptable of the conditions? Did you want to add anything to the report?
We are marrying the Harrisburg University of Harrisburg Community Center. We are all residents of the area. So growing up in the area, seeing spaces that we can utilize for nonprofits, also in regards to Harrisburg University and businesses of the sort with the meeting space component, the seminar space, what we'll be able to do, and being able to provide nonprofits with programming space to be able to be utilized in the downtown area. Rich will be able to speak more on the business.
And just to piggyback off of what my partner stated, we want to have a story really quick about Vera Cornish, the late great Vera Cornish. I didn't meet Vera Cornish in Harrisburg as odd as that sounds. I actually met her in Pittsburgh. I was very instrumental in assisting with the expansion of UPMC to the area and with small diverse business enterprises in the area. So I know the importance of procurement, especially in terms of WBEs, MBEs in the area. So what our initial goal was to not only house the nonprofits, you know, to assist with providing those services that are in need in the area, but we also want to have and help small businesses in our location, you know, grow. And that's our one of our biggest goals for the space.
I noticed, did you gentlemen actually speak to anyone from HU or with the events? And so they're part of agreeing to working with you.
In entrepreneurship, Jamal Jones will be having a space opening within the Strawberry Square unit. We will be also housing some of the events that they'll be able to utilize across the street in regards to our space. But we also have the NAACP. We have multiple organizations that will be able to utilize the space for programming as well.
And if I may piggyback, also Phoebe West is the project director over at Temple currently. And they are currently looking to, you know, utilize some space as well for some of their up and coming grant renewals. So we're excited about that. We've also been in very close communication with Shapiro and Company and Austin Davis personally. And you know, we want to also expand on opening our doors up and just housing some of you know, anything that they need basically for us to provide since we're in the neighborhood. Ultimately, our goal for the space is we want to be a good neighbor.
I asked you that question because as commissioners, we have we'd love to have businesses make partnerships with the neighbors or contact them. So they're aware of what you're doing and they're working with you. That's the good thing. That's the only questions I have so far, commissioners. And we'll start with Commissioner McKenzie.
I guess I'm just still trying to understand what's going into this building. You've got roughly 2,000 square feet on each floor. You're not occupying the upper floors at all.
It will just be the ground level, and then we also have the basement level. So for the ground level, we have a space that we can utilize for any of the programming or any organization that comes in. We'll be able to set it up to fit their needs. So if we have I'll give an example of a nonprofit that I'm currently working with called Detectable Data. So they work with 3D printing. So we'll be able to have tables set up where they will set up the 3D printing machines and have the youth come in and utilize those machines. So we have a space that can be multifaceted. And then in our basement area, we do plan to have an art gallery that we will be working with local artists from outside of the area, and also HU students to be able to showcase some of their artwork as well during that space. But the basement space will be utilized as the same, where during any nonprofits or any businesses that utilize the space with us for the seminars, meetings, we'll be able to tailor it to fit the needs of that program.
Well, being it's relatively narrow, 15 feet wide.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that these are temporary setups, pop-ups kind of thing,
Yes.
a day by day or week by week or something like that.
Correct. So with
Based
the
on a contract.
yes, based on the contracts, because we will have agreements. So even with Jamal Jones, we'll have something in place where we do want to run monthly programming with them. With the NAACP, I know that they'll be utilizing the space through the month of February. So that right there will be on a case-by-case basis of what they're utilizing the space for. But with each contract that we'll have, especially with the nonprofit work, we'll know their setups that they'll utilize the space per week.
And we're not looking for anything other than a special exception, and this kind of lives outside of the normal boundaries of what our code kind of envisions.
Yeah, I
As a
think.
building specific use.
Yeah, I think, this is really what that use not. Or an open-ended use of this type of nature, while still kind of prescribing the opportunity for review by the planning commission and the zoning hearing board, so that criterion that are in the zoning code can be applied to the general activities that will be happening on site. But this seems like a good use for that. I mean, if it were just one specific thing or the other, we might call it an office or a community center or something like that.
Right.
But it's really the open-ended nature of the business, as I've discussed with the applicant, I think qualifies it under the use not specific.
Yeah, that's just what I'm trying to understand. All this, it doesn't appear that there's kitchen or any food service at all.
No,
Okay.
there would be no food service, and then as outlined, no alcoholic activities, and we'll end it by 10 o'clock.
No other questions?
Commissioner O'Toole.
Do any of you three have any connection to the University of Pittsburgh?
So I went to school out at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So through the Pittsburgh area, I actually built a playground out in the Homewood area back in 2013. So with that, one of their community engagement centers is in the Homewood area. So I was able to tie myself into that through there. So being a resident of Harrisburg and having ties in Pittsburgh and also in Philadelphia, I stated to myself, why couldn't we have something similar of that nature?
I can't say it fully understand the concept, but it's kind of been equipment over illegal, you might.
Yeah, our BYOB is bring your own business. Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner Reed. My favorite department.
See, I got promoted.
I don't have so many questions. It sounds like it's like a pop-up event space. kind of?
Well, the main focus of it will be where nonprofits in our city, they don't have space to operate their programs out of. So one main focus that we will have is being in the downtown area and being able to partner directly with Harrisburg University, where those students are coming from the DC area, Jersey, places of that nature. We want to make sure we build a community center engagement space out of there for them to work out of.
Okay, so when I think of a community engagement space, it's usually tied to an organization. So it's usually tied to a university, tied to a hospital, tied to an organization that wants to create community engagement. So since this isn't directly tied to an organization, in my mind, it fits more of a, this is just how I categorize it in my mind, more of a pop-up.
Yeah.
Because different organizations can use it to the benefit that they need at that time
Correct.
in a pop-up manner. So if a nonprofit in Harrisburg is looking for a space to host something,
Mhm.
they could come and use your space. Potentially
Yes.
via contract.
Via contract, yes.
What if it's not a nonprofit? What if I'm just looking for a space downtown? Like,
So
I just want to have a brunch with my friends. Is your space available for that?
that is something that we will want to work directly with organizations in regards to if they're a corporate organization or a business organization. As far as community members, we want to keep this directly focused on community aspect. So not just a community member off the street coming in and saying, hey, I would like to have 25 friends come and we want to host a brunch. It would have to be focused towards something of the community nature what a community organization would put across. And that's where the contract based of how we would run is more off of it, of as far as how we will be utilizing a space.
Okay. All right, I mean, I like the idea. It's still kind of open-ended to me a little, just because it's not tied to a specific organization. So once again, community engagement usually is an organization trying to engage the community they've become a part of. You're trying to fulfill that for multiple organizations, essentially, just in your space. You're not creating excuse me, I kind of have a little bit of a cold, so if I sound nosy, excuse me. You're not trying to create a community engagement plan for them. You're just trying to be a space that if they already have a community engagement plan, they can utilize your space. All right.
And
I'm
sorry.
noted Harrisburg University a couple of times, but they're really close to you guys, right?
Yes.
So I would go, why do they need your space?
So currently, they do not have a student center that they utilize that is big enough to host some of the programming that they would like to do. They do have a space that they use out of the Whitaker Center, but from the concerns of the organizations within Harrisburg University, they are looking for somewhere to use that would be open for them with the programming that they are looking to utilize.
Okay. Outside of just having a space, what else do you provide to the organizations? Like, do you provide setup? Do you provide, like, what else do you provide?
So with that, we will be providing setup for them. We will also be providing a history where I have ran nonprofits in the past and I have done nonprofit consulting in the past, which I currently still do. That's one of the main purposes of wanting to open up a space that they would be able to utilize to be able to assist them with getting grants, with also working with, as he stated, with the WBEs and
SDBEs and MBEs as well. Because one of the biggest voids that I've found over time has been, yes, you know, and we all know this, yes, there are corporations that provide the funding, but who's going to do the work? And there's not enough of us to come and do the work. And when I say us, I mean MBEs, WBEs, SDBEs, or we just don't know how to connect the dots. We don't know who to talk to, who to meet with to get these contracts, right? So what we want to do essentially, and kind of open your mind up to this, we want to just create this platform where it's speed dating, if you will, in a sense, just for lack of a better term, for large corporations and small businesses.
Okay, so that's outside of the community engagement piece. That's more of SBE, WBE, minority business, mentoring, pop-up, speed dating. That's something that you guys, would like an event you would host.
Again, just based on contract. So as he was stating, we would house the nonprofits in our location, of course. But then if the nonprofit is from, say, 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., it might be held by, I don't know, we'll just say, for lack of a better term, ABC LLC. And ABC LLC might be a minority business, and they might know how to get certain contracts, or they might have certain connections that certain subcontractors need. So we want to be that space that connects those dots. We want to be that space that people can come to, business owners can come to, creatives can come to, and then figure out, okay, how can I get my hands on some of this work that's in my city? Because a lot of people, if you even take the terminology, they don't even know what it is. They don't know what it means. They don't know what a minority business, they don't know what procurement is. They don't understand these terms. But if we can help assist and educate these individuals on how to get this business, we all grow. We do our part for our community.
Okay. I'm kind of picking up multiple things here, and maybe I'm just like reading it wrong. So is this 8 to 10? Is this a business like that? You're going to have nonprofits permanently housed there throughout a set period of time, but then you're also at the same time in the same space going to be providing services like to Harrisburg University to come and have pop-up events there, along with maybe Temple University. So you're going to use the same space at the same time for multiple entities to do multiple things. I'm going to reach back out to Vern down here because he knows the schematics a little more than me. Is it enough space to do that? Because it didn't look big enough.
So it's the timeframes that we're providing. So with let's say an after-school program, that will run from a 3 to 5 timeframe. And then, as he stated, we may have a business organization that is able to host something that is benefiting the local businesses in regards to learning, teaching, something of that nature with the business development. They may utilize the space from 6 to 8.
Right. So I get scheduling. Right?
Hypothetically,
I understand
yes,
scheduling,
yes.
right? I get that part. What I don't get, I also have dealt with organizations that are hubs, right?
Yes.
And so they have multiple organizations in one building, right? So
Yes.
that you can have like your career leaf, which is a one-stop shop, right?
Correct.
I understand that part, that everyone rents a part of that building.
Yes.
But I understand in order to rent a part of that building, it has to be enough space for everybody to have something to rent, unless you're talking about like a shared space type, workspace, shared workspace type environment. Which is something completely different. I haven't heard that idea come up from this conversation yet. If you're putting 3 nonprofits in there that have permanent space in there so they can have a permanent location to write grants and things like that, and the space is being utilized for that, then at 5 p.m. is their space then broken down and now it can be used as space for Harrisburg University to come in? It just seems like it would be a lot of up and down throughout the day if it's a permanent space for some people within a pop-up space for other people. But looking at the picture, it doesn't seem like it's enough space to be a permanent and a pop-up at the same time. So I don't know, I know there are different levels, but you said that you're only gonna be working off of one level. So it doesn't seem like the nonprofit's gonna be permanently on the second level and then the pop-up event space is on the first level. To me, it just sounds like a lot of great ideas going on at one time. And I don't see how they all fit into the same space at the same time. And I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way. Sometimes I am the only one that feels this way. So I'll open it up to see if anyone else is kind of confused on how everything's going to fit into one space at one time with completely different, perspectives and ideas of what it's going to be. Call me cynical, but it just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
So if you want to explain how.
Now, I would just want to say it's just project management. It's project
I was
management.
about to say, if we have a room like this,
It's just project
and
management.
I've got ABC,
That's it.
LLC, and I've got CBD, GBD, and DDD, ED, whatever.
Right.
I've got 5 businesses, right? Each of them hold a cubicle space. Now, the space isn't as big as this, right? It'd be about. But they fairly said they're only working on one level,
No.
Two.
Mention the two.
so you're working on two levels.
Correct.
So are the nonprofits gonna be housed on one level permanently and then the event space on another level? Or is everything happening
So.
at the same
Yeah,
space?
so what we're creating is a space. So just how the University of Pittsburgh's Community Engagement Center operates. They work with the local community, they work with local nonprofits, and they also work with the university.
Mhm.
So what they do is they provide space. The key part of it is the space that is being provided. So if a nonprofit comes to us and say, hey, we would like to run this after school program, but we don't have no space that we're able to run it out of. So what we'll do is we'll come and utilize your space from this time to this time.
So these are not permanent setups, that's what I keep asking. Are these
I
permanent setups?
think that's the main thing. Like, they're not permanent really. Everything's under.
Everything
contract.
essentially is like.
As a
pop-up.
contract or a partnership that we'll be having with them. So I already have 7 nonprofits that need spacing to use to run programs. So I'm already working with them. I have not signed anything yet because I want to make sure that we're able to utilize the space in this manner. But I already have 7 nonprofits that want to come in and utilize the spacing throughout the week. So it's not where they will be permanently housed. They will be able to come in and run their programming. So we can provide something in that area with the location that we have.
So they're renting the time of an event space. Even though this might not be an event, it might be for programming space, but they're renting the space for a period of time. They're not coming in like renting. Are you with them?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Dan, if you could come up here, please, and introduce yourself, because I just keep hearing voices off to the side. So feel free to come and introduce yourself if you would like to add something to it.
I'm still here, thank you.
Thank you. So they're not coming in and renting a cubicle, and they're housed in this cubicle
No.
permanently. This is their
Yes.
business space.
Yes.
No,
No,
to yes.
hold on. Hold on. Let me make sure I
So
understand.
they're
what
not
you're
renting
saying.
the space as like a permanent
No.
house location.
No.
They're renting periods of time to use your building, like an event
Yes.
space.
Correct.
I understand this is, we're not calling it an event space, it's a
Yes.
community engagement space. But they're renting the time the same way as if I would go rent an event space.
Correct.
Yes.
I only have it for the set period of time. It doesn't matter if I run something every week. I still only have it for that set period of time. I have a breakup time, I have a set break up or put up and put down time. And then I have the time that I have the actual event space.
Yes, and in that.
Outside of that, I have absolutely no right to that space.
Correct.
So I don't have a key. I don't come in Monday through Friday because, well, I've got a grant that I want to write. And so I come in on Tuesday and I have keys and all access to the building.
Right.
It's specifically for periods of time that they're renting it.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter if it's a local nonprofit, if it's a university, whoever it is, they rent it for a specific period of time, whether it's a repetitive period of time or whether it's a one-time thing.
Correct.
Correct. And we're pushing towards to make sure that we keep the consistency. So we're not looking for one-time things, but yes, in that manner.
Okay, all right. So it is not a space for nonprofits to come because they don't have space to rent for their daily administrative activities. It's for programming.
Yes.
I think I've got the concept of it now, because I'm like, how can they rent the space as like a permanent fixture and then you're also renting it to other people for pop-up things at the exact
Okay.
same time? So it was
Gotcha.
kind of like different things going on. So like when you start mentioning business mentoring, and I'm like, wait, so is this now your business that you're mentoring businesses on how to procure, get procurements and things like that? Is that a permanent thing here as well? I'm like, it's a lot of things going on in one little space. It's just starting to sound like talking.
Yeah.
All right,
No.
I think I understand. Thanks for giving me that. And I think did we get everybody? I didn't think so.
Commissioner Murray?
So I'll just kind of, so Asha, but I think what I've been trying to visualize and hearing what they're explaining about the nature of their business operation, I've kind of just boiled it down to like, so like I think of a nonprofit that I'm a part of, that doesn't physically own building space for themselves. So, every month they have to secure a meeting space to conduct their like general membership meetings monthly. And then if they want to do some sort of like activity with the community, they have to find space to do it, 'cause they don't have the room, right? So what I imagine is that an outlet, that this business idea, that nonprofit could enter into a contract with these folks to say, okay, every month for the next, year, or whatever, this day is ours, like we want to reserve this space, and these hours to conduct our meeting.
Correct.
Correct.
That's what I'm gathering.
Yes.
Right. So,
100%.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I can understand the nature of how open-ended this feels, and it doesn't fit nicely into a building code, zoning use box. But I think the boundaries that have been put around this use, and then looking at, impact, comparative impacts that would be permitted by right in this area, feels okay, like it seems to make sense. I would say, I kind of understand like where Asha's coming from to a certain degree with like having partnerships in place, and typically it's an established university or hospital or healthcare, right? That is creating the space for the community. It sounds like you've done a lot of legwork to already secure interest in contracts with folks. I would say if you happen to be able to create any sort of letters of intent or letters of support from any of those entities, it might help you in front of zoning hearing board and so on, as you get approvals and whatnot, to sort of say, hey, we have ties to X organization to do XYZ sort of things. It might just help give some clarity and definition of what you're doing.
And with that, because of the rescheduling of the meeting, we did have individuals that were going to come last week. So for the zoning, I have.
Yeah, I think that'll help a lot, right? Because then they can speak to why they want to work with you and what they intend on doing. That is all I have.
Our solicitor,
There is one technical issue, and this is really for your benefit, like before you get to, or when you get to zoning. The lease agreement lists, is Mr. Salam
Yes.
as the owner, landlord. The lease attached says that, or the deed attached says it's SK Properties LLC. I mean, I will note they both have the same Lidditz mailing address, but however those two are connected, you just have to have that to get past the challenge to standing when you're there. If someone challenges it, you just got to show it's this, they're connected. So,
And we did receive that from Jeffrey, he did inform us of that.
Yeah.
So we do have where we can get an updated lease where you have it, but he sent that deed, so I understand that, so we'll have that.
yeah, just right now it looks like it's two different owners. So that's what it looks
Yes.
like on paper. So.
yes, I'm ready for the public. Is there anyone from the public for or against the project? And if you are, please state your name. And start with the right. All right, commissioners, guess we're ready for a motion. I sort of understand this on maybe a larger scale, but when I was the director, we never had enough space at conferences. We had a bigger meeting. So we always had monthly meetings. I see this on the small screen. It's small, as long as they can schedule.
Once I understood what they were trying to do, then I understood it, but it sounded like we're trying to do a lot of things in one space at the same time. So
Yeah.
We gotta pick a mission. and
Right,
set up.
right, yeah.
Motion to approve conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second for approval of the project. Conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on item number 3. This is the a variance application for 1833 North Sixth Street, which is zone CN, filed by William Rose, Catherine Hershey School for Early Learning. This is to construct an accessory parking lot as the primary use of the subject property.
The applicant is proposing to establish an accessory parking lot or structure as principal use on site, which requires zoning hearing board approval of variance application for section 7-333.2A6 of the code. Accessory use must be incidental to their principal use or building on the same lot. The project site is comprised of 3 separate vacant parcels per the county's tax parcel map. The primary property at 1833 North Sixth Street and 2 unaddressed parcels fronting Minnick Street, which comprises a 0.55 acre site in total, with the majority of the site being covered in grass. There were some mature trees on the property before being removed recently. The property is bounded by Minnick Street to the north, Wallace Street to the east, properties at 600 to 626 Dolphin Street to the south, and North Sixth Street to the west. Planning Bureau staff recommends the request be denied for the following reasons. The applicant has not provided a justification for why the parcel cannot be used in conformance with the applicable zoning regulations. In fact, as a vacant lot located in the commercial neighborhood zoning district along a corridor in which new development is anticipated, the site is well positioned for development as a mix of medium and high density residential and neighborhood retail activities as proposed in the zoning code. The proposed project is directly contradictory to the vision for the North Sixth Street corridor as outlined in the recently adopted comprehensive plan, which states an intention to encourage high density mixed use development in downtown expansion areas such as the Sixth Street corridor, among other related goals. As the zoning hearing board has discussed in reviewing other variance requests for accessory surface parking lots, there is a high burden of proof on the applicant to justify why the property must be developed as surface parking and not as a more productive use of property in conformance with the zoning code. Current proposal does not meet the criteria outlined for approval of variances. Finally, the proposed surface parking lot will provide negligible benefits to the community and most likely will impose detrimental impacts, including increasing stormwater runoff and adding to the urban heat out effect. There's also the lost opportunity cost of rejecting the development of potential accommodations for either residents or businesses with a surface parking lot.
Thanks, Brad. Could you state your name, your address, and your relationship to the project?
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Scott Dietrich, 11 North for Catherine Hershey Schools for Early Learning Harrisburg, the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Senate Alexander. I am the Executive Director of the Catherine Hershey Schools for Early Learning.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mark Hackenberg. I'm a landscape architect with RGS Associates. Our Harrisburg office is handling this project, and we're located at 320 North Market Street, Suite 550.
You gentlemen heard the staff report, denial. This they reply, we should deny.
Yes, commissioners, we disagree with Mr. Knight's denial of the variance application. Our proposal is for a attractive streetscape on North Sixth Street with the bus stop and accessory parking. The accessory parking is necessary for the Catherine Hershey School for Early Learning Harrisburg across Minnick Street from this lot. Accessory parking is permitted in this zone. The only reason this is not permitted is because it doesn't meet the exact definition of accessory parking, and that it is in an adjacent lot rather than an abutting lot. So because the street Minnick separates it, it doesn't meet the zone, and that's why we're requesting the variance. Otherwise, accessory parking would be permitted and is needed for Catherine Hershey Schools. There's a precedent for this of being permitted and these variances being allowed in Harrisburg, as the Broad Street Market had accessory parking with a street separating that as well and was needed for that lot. Mr. Alexander will present that the neighborhood needs this additional parking or relief from this additional parking, that Kaplan Hershey School is going to require additional parking and does not want to hinder or have a detrimental effect on the parking, on-street parking within the neighborhood. He will also show the uses and the intended uses for this lot by the school and that its need for it. Mr. Hackenberg will show how it exists within the neighborhood lots surrounding it and how it will be a benefit to the neighbors, how this lot itself does not have any other practical uses that Kaplan Hershey can utilize it for. And will also show that all of the neighbors were notified of this variance application and nobody has come forward to deny or to object to the variance application. So I will pass this on to Mr. Alexander at first.
Yeah, so good evening, commissioners. First off, I just wanted to say we were here with our land development, our original land development plan in the spring and over the summertime. And so just want to first just say thank you just for just having just the support of just the project just in general. From there, and just want to just give once again just a refresher, just what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve here with the Kaplan Hershey Schools for Early Learning. So we are a subsidiary of the Milton Hershey School. And so basically what we are trying to do is we are creating a free of cost early childhood education center. And we're talking about a state-of-the-art early childhood education center, so not your regular early childhood education center. So really two really big goals that we're trying to do with our early childhood education center. One, just kindergarten readiness, so ensuring that the children have kindergarten readiness, so that the program will be for children birth to 5. 150 children will be in this program. The second piece is that is really trying to have a 2-generational impact. And so because of that kind of 2-generational impact, really, how do we really kind of help our parents? So how do we connect them to partners? So from social services to nonprofit organizations, to housing, from budgeting to GED classes and those types. So in our building, we have a family success center where families can go. They can meet with families, our family engagement specialists, who will then help kind of get them on goals, help them with their, connecting them to classes. We also have partnership space that's also within each of our centers as well. And where that partnership space is that local nonprofits organizations will be in those partnership space, being able to meet with families right there. And that's really one of the biggest cheap reasons why we really need, this ancillary parking that's on this south lot. One of the biggest chief concerns, the chief concern that we have heard when it comes to our school has just been parking. How do we just ensure parking is already at a premium in Harrisburg? And so the residents have said there cannot be any on-street parking. We barely have any parking as it is. And so when we think about just how many, partners that we will have in those things, so things like the Tri-County OIC has been one. It's been talking about doing GED classes for some of our families. When we talk about, things like early intervention services, so, OT, PT, for children, speech pathologists, all of those types of things. We really need the parking to be able to house all of those things. Because really what we're trying to do is we're trying to, how do we really break down the barriers for our families? So having this as a one-stop shop. So everything from family engagement, there's health services that's within our building. There is obviously our teaching that's within our building. There's our playgrounds, all of those different types of things that's within our building. And so it is imperative so that once again, we do not disrupt the neighborhood that's already there. The other thing is that with this kind of south lot, we are also looking for that south lot, not only just for parking, but we've also have a community plaza that's there as well. So we think about things like, how do we have farmers markets that's there for the community, not just for our families, but for the community? How do we think about, other just kind of neighborhood events, maybe an art festival, maybe you have, kindergarten having food trucks out there. Once again, how can we utilize this space for, the community and to really, once again, kind of help the community and drive the community within all this. Without this kind of variance, there is really no other reasonable use for us, and it will just sit vacant. There's nothing else for us to do, especially with the bus stop, where the bus stop is. I mean, putting mixed for residential right there. There's nothing else because we are just an early child education facility. We cannot, because of the nonprofit organization that we are, we can't do residential. We can't do anything else other than this is the only use that could be used in this particular lot. And it does have a benefit for the community, to help the community. And so I do think that we just really have to think about this more. This is not your regular early childhood education center. This is a hub that parents and faculty and staff and partners will be there. And we want to make sure that we're being good community partners by not impeding on any type of parking that's going on in the residential area that's there for us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. I'll now present Mr. Hackenberg.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Jake, my coworker, to share some exhibits that we intend to review with the zoning hearing board. And basically, these are contextual exhibits. You might have a black and white copy that was in the original application. I think these are a little bit easier for you to read. And I'll start with the one on top, which is an overall site plan, basically vicinity map. And this indicates some of the surrounding land uses. In the orientation is to the left is north. But what you're seeing in the green box outlined by yellow and then red are roughly the 3.99 acre properties that Mr. Knight had described. This is where the Early Childhood Education Center is proposed. The box in red is the subject property. That's the one that we're focused on, which is being considered for the south lot. I'll just point out to you a couple of things relating to this particular configuration. If you look at 6th Street identifies various bus stops. There are 4 bus stops within general proximity of the site. The one that is proposed at Minnick and North 6th Street, or I shouldn't say proposed, exists. We are proposing a sheltered stop in that location, anticipating that there may be some employee and or users of the facility who might utilize that particular bus stop more effectively than it might be now with the introduction of a new facility in this location. I'll ask you to, before I move on, I will say that as a part of the application, we had contacted all of the neighbors. There were, I think, 60 some neighbors who were contacted, as was mentioned earlier. They're represented in the overall component of our application. All of those neighbors have been engaged in multiple neighborhood meetings and neighborhood discussion groups. So, which is part of where our project team has heard some of the feedback and concern from neighbors about cars impacting the local on-street parking. So we recognize there is on-street parking available. The issue is, as Senate has indicated, the potential swell that may occur for various special events is really part of the concern that we have, and really why we feel the need for the south lot to be a component of the project. I'll ask you to flip to the second page. This particular image represents the Catherine Hershey School for Early Learning. This is a 2-story structure that's intended to house 150 children and 70 employees. And based on the current, or based on your zoning code, the parking load requirements for 150 children is 1 space for every 6 children, 25 spaces, or actually 27 parking spaces proposed in what we consider the front lot or the lot on North 6th Street, which is primarily for the daily drop off and pickup of children who are being served by this particular facility and center. The 70 spaces, which would be in the northeastern corner at the intersection of 7th Street and Peffer Street, is intended to serve roughly the entire employee load for the facility, 70 employees, 70 parking spaces. On Minnick Street, you'll see that there is a sort of a gray area. That's a dock and a service area that is intended to serve this facility. Meals will be brought in to serve the children and special events that may occur. And the lot specifically that we're talking about is to the south at the intersection of Minnick and North 6th Street. And as was mentioned earlier, this is a lot that's intended to have multiple functions. It is that sort of circular community space. It's an opportunity for neighborhood gatherings and an opportunity for large events to represent the mission of Milton Hershey and Catherine Hershey giving back to the community. And I think as Senate has testified, for Milton Hershey, they don't have the opportunity to build and lease office space. So they're not in the business of providing affordable housing at some of the uses that were indicated in Mr. Knight's review. What's important to them is operating a facility that can function, and having accessory park is important to the function of this facility. And thus the reason we're requesting this relief this evening.
So I just want to do a summary of what we're presenting tonight. I mean, obviously there's 5 factors in approving a variance application. Again, this is a dimensional variance, not a use variance. The use is permitted within the zone. So we need to show what is the unique hardship. The unique hardship is simply the existence of Minnick Street between the school and this accessory parking lot. That's what we're asking for the variance from, is permitting that parking lot to be on the opposite side of Minnick Street. Otherwise, as explained, there's no other practical use for this lot. It's a relatively small lot. It's already going to have a bus stop and an attractive streetscape constructed there. There's really not a purpose to develop anything behind that both fits with what Catherine Hershey School's goals are, or is even practical for the neighborhood. Again, even if a building or something was put there, there would be necessary parking for that building as well. As Mr. Hackenberg stated, the project meets the minimum requirements under the zoning code of it has 97 spaces when 95 are required, but that's it. It barely meets that minimum. So any additional events, any projects that Mr. Alexander was talking about, food trucks, community events, so forth, there would be no parking for that other than within the neighborhood streets. When we came to the Planning Commission before with the land development plan, we were told numerous times that what this commission wanted was us to reach out to the community. And they have done significant reach out to the community, talk to the neighbors, talk to local businesses, talk to them. We're trying to provide services and community events that will benefit the community. But what is their main concern? Their main concern is, where's everyone going to park when those things happen? And this is what this variance application meets. It meets that needs. It benefits the neighborhood. It is not a detriment to the neighborhood. We did not create this hardship. This is simply a hardship based on the statutory language in the zoning ordinance. And is this the minimal variance needed to effectuate what we want to do? Absolutely it is. I mean, we're simply asking to permit accessory parking on a lot that's adjacent to our project, but separated by a street. And that's all we're asking for today. If you look at the site that Mr. Hackenberg had presented, here's our lot. There's the lot. There's the project lot is right there. If our lot was here rather than there, we would be permitted to have accessory parking. It would be allowed within the zone because it abuts our project. So simply because we're located on this side instead of that side seems an unnecessary reading of the zoning ordinance to deny the variance application in this case. So we're respectfully requesting that the commission consider approving and suggesting approval to the zoning hearing board of our variance application. Thank you.
I think I've laid out the Planning Bureau's case pretty clearly in our case report. I mean, by the applicant's own admission, the hardship is caused by the language of the zoning code, and the hardship can't be caused. There's no unique circumstances. They're arguing that a public right-of-way, which exists in a grid throughout the city, creates a unique hardship to their property. In addition, the main site of their building has all the required parking for the uses in that building. In addition to that, there are at least 30 spaces of on-street parking on the frontage of their main campus here. So, not only do the applicants have all the parking they need within the site itself, but they have ample parking for the occasional special event that they claim that this parking lot will service. Additionally, to the applicant's statements about the availability of parking and the issue of parking surrounding the site, this is the one shot of the blocks of Minnick, 600 block of Minnick Street, 600 block of Dolphin Street, which are along the property and just one block to the south. And I also have a list of the properties that are along Dolphin Street, because in looking at the aerial map, you may see, well, there are, houses there and there may be tenants there. I asked the Codes Bureau to take a look, because if you drive down Dolphin Street, the two block, the 600 block of Dolphin Street, it's questionable about how occupied or how active those places are. In total on that block, there are 39 properties. Of those, only 25 are occupied, 12 are vacant, 3 are condemned, and then 3 are vacant lots as well. And so you can see that from the photos, there's ample parking on the streets. Like, to argue that the occasional event that the applicants state that this parking lot is for will somehow overwhelm the parking on the block. And I would note that this photo was taken at about 5 o'clock on Monday morning, or Monday afternoon, to argue that this would create a massive burden on the neighbors is frankly kind of defies belief a little bit when you look at these photos and you see how little parking is actually occurring at the moment. So the applicants are arguing that in a year or two, when this building is constructed, there might be an issue with parking, but there's really nothing to back up that assertion. And I think frankly, observation of the area will kind of demonstrate that it's really unlikely that that would be a problem. But even if that were to be a problem, that's not something the applicants can know until the structure is built and the activities on the site begins. If it does occur, that if it does happen that they have these events and farmers markets and after hours events and people are just driving in circles looking for on-street parking, they may have an argument to come back and say, we need this to reduce the impact on the neighborhood. But the fact of the matter is, there is no impact. There will be no impact until the construction of this building is done. And even after that, it's unlikely that there will be an impact. Beyond that, the applicants are arguing that a surface parking lot is a dimensional relief due to the difference between adjacent and abutting. And really, it does come down to use, because as noted in the case report in the zoning code, the intent of the commercial neighborhood district is to create a mix of uses of residential and commercial to activate streetscapes and activate neighborhoods. Like, a surface parking lot is literally the exact opposite of that. So to me, when they talk about going after or having this be the minimum deviation from the zoning code, I see this as being the maximum deviation from the zoning code, because you're literally going in the complete opposite direction that the zoning code says that a property with this designation, how a property with this designation should be developed. And so, while I appreciate the applicant's intention on, trying to foresee a problem and maybe meet it, it doesn't sound like they have the justification to do so. And it also doesn't sound as though this particular project is really utilizing the property as the zoning code envisioned it. And finally, and I made a reference to this in the case report as well, the city just adopted a comprehensive plan a year ago, as you all know, because it took a very long time to go through. And the comprehensive plan envisions this corridor being a mix of residential and non-residential commercial uses. We also have obviously institutional uses with the federal courthouse, the state archives, and with the applicants' early learning center across the street. So to basically say, to basically approve a surface parking lot at this location on this corridor, where not only are we expecting there to be more development, but we've already seen development, or we've already had conversations with developers about new construction, which I actually imagine will be coming across your agendas in the next year. We're seeing that there is both a need and a demand for development in this corridor, and to take away a half-acre site in this corridor and use it as surface parking really kind of runs counter to what the comprehensive plan does envision for this corridor. And if the planning commission, supports that kind of proposal, then I think we have to ask, what does that say about viability of the vision comprehensive plan? Like, is it not viable? And if so, are the recommendations within it, even warranting enforcement and support going?
I just say something.
Let you respond, but I don't want to get back and forth.
Yeah, sure.
I did want to at least just clarify, because there was one thing I guess around just kind of that it's only for special events. That's not true. With only having 97 parking spaces, when we talk about 2 generational impact, right? We envision that parents will actually be staying there at the center and actually be there at the family engagement center, right? And being within there, talking to those family engagement specialists, setting goals, having conversations, doing really the work within there. And so, on a day-to-day basis, right? So parents staying there, we're talking about partners also staying there as well to be able to deliver these services to parents, right? We're talking about, the way our recruitment model is that we're talking about these are families that are anywhere between 200% and below the federal poverty line, right? So some of them may not have access, may not be employed right now, so they need jobs training skills, right? Housing support, all of those different types of things, and there's going to need to be partners that are going to have to be in there. So to only have 97 parking spots, that gets us enough for the staff members, and enough for if it was only 20 parents that stayed. We have 150. Every child has 2 parents, so that's 300. And so on a day-to-day basis, there will be kind of an overrun in terms of just how much we are envisioning. We think that when it comes to just in and out of the, could be up to 150 parking spots as folks are utilizing this center and really being a part of this center. And so I don't want it to just be that it's only about special events, these one-time kind of occurrences here and there. No, this will be daily use of utilizing this kind of 2-generational impact so that we can really change the trajectory of these families' lives, which takes a lot of work within all of this. So.
Thank you. And I would also say this is the streetscape. I totally respect what Mr. Knight's trying to say about the comprehensive plan and beautifying North 6th Street. Adding the Catherine Hershey School, adding this kind of streetscape is going to beautify North 6th Street rather than just a vacant grass lot sitting there. And so I think that it's important to know that the applicant feels strongly that this is in support of the comprehensive plan. This is necessary. Some of the special events we were talking about, although it's not exclusive to that, will utilize this property as well. I mean, and so it's important to know that this was all part of the community outreach. This is all part of trying to provide for the community in addition to the needs of the school. Thank you.
Turning to city administrators now. Before I do that, sort of mixed feelings. I understand this point in the zoning worship and so forth, but I'm also looking, and I'm always on part. In 2 years of this building is going to be built, and the archives will be up, the federal building will be up. And hopefully the state goes back to normal. As before the fires, state people park all the way up State. Every opening area, and it created problems for the neighborhood. So I don't quite get why it's parking lot. Like I said, it's not like a normal parking space. In 2 or 3 years, it's going to be crowded, and we know all the buildings that go. A couple of buildings tonight. Parking's going to be a problem. So I don't see how this will lead to parking. That's just my point. So go to commissioners.
I certainly admire the goals and the investment in the city. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing. However, I've had to abstain from the previous discussions. I will need to abstain from this one.
Commissioner O'Toole.
Yeah, I mean, well, projects has come before us, that's 4, 5, 6, 10 years. This is one of my favorite. Thing to say. That said, you know, applicants coming before us, wanting to put in service park and have a look at that. I don't think I understand the hardship of it. I understand. You actually acknowledge that there are things that can be put on there that are in compliance with the zoning ordinance, but you guys don't do those kind of things. I don't think that's how. Yeah, I don't think the hardship that requirements define that specifically. I think you guys actually acknowledge that there are things that can be done. Plus, I don't think I didn't really prove the need for additional parking. 70 employees, the rest of the kids, children driving. There seems to be adequate parking already in the so, yeah, as of now.
Commissioner Reed.
How many spaces are we talking about?
30 additional spaces.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you. I would say it's a nice looking parking lot. But it is a parking lot. And so, there's always a need for more parking anywhere, right? You can always argue that, but I also hate to see empty parking lots, which we do see sometimes where people build surface parking lots for extra parking they never get to use. And so that's not something that we want. I understand that there's the potential for it to be used daily by people using some of the services inside the building. But the project does have more than enough parking on site. So I get both sides of it. You never want to infringe upon the neighbors by having people parking in spots when you could have created more parking spots. And it is a nice looking parking lot, but at this moment, I can't really say that it's a needed parking lot at this phase of the project. Still on the fence, but right now leaning against it.
I would only respond that, as Mr. Alexander explained, it meets the legal requirements. The existing parking meets the legal requirements under your zoning ordinance. It doesn't meet their functional requirements. They believe they're going to need far more than the 97 spaces that they have on a daily basis.
You know, I just want to just say a couple more things. You know, when you think about, you know, this particular population that we're talking about, you know, 0% to 200% of the federal poverty line, right? So we're talking about low income families. You know, when we think about just the amount of services that we're talking about that are needed. So from early intervention, right? So children needing PT, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, you know, usually at this age, between that 0 to 5 years, and we're talking about anywhere between 15 to 20%, 15 to 30% of our student body that are going to need this. So this is going to be something that's going to be an ongoing thing that they're going to have those types of services that are going to need to be on site. In addition to, you know, as I said before, just in terms of just how many, you know, once again, when you see, you know, 2-generational impact, you know, one of the things is when it comes to just families, the usage of it. You know, you see anywhere between 40 to 60% of your families utilizing this. It's because it's now a service. And we have now broken down all the barriers, right? You have your healthcare that's in there. You have your, you know, your speech stuff. You have your food in there. You have you have all of these different types of things in there. So families are like, okay, you know, there's a bar, a coffee shop that's within the family engagement center. You know, once again, we want our families to stay and be in there because we know that they have to do the work that they need to be able to get out of poverty. And so yes, while it does meet the legal requirement, it does not meet our programmatic requirements, which is why this really actually needs to have, needs to be able to, have that, additional parking to be able to do that.
Well, and if I may follow up on one point, so the applicants have, made, again, the applicant's mission is laudable. And the fact that they're helping low and moderate income families is really important, but they've mentioned a few times how the services that will be provided and the children they'll be serving are down as far as 200% below the federal poverty line. That is not very much money. The average cost to own and operate a car for a year per AAA is something like $9,000 a year. So we're arguing that people that are like well below the federal poverty line are able to afford this. And so I think the applicants are making the assertion that basically all of these deeply families in deep poverty are driving one or possibly even two cars, as they mentioned. And I think that's really unreasonable. I think the fact that they are incorporating a bus stop into the site demonstrates that people will get there by bus. They're trying to make the implication that everybody's going to drive to this place, when I think the demographics of the families using their facility and the fact that they're including a bus stop, and I believe in their land development plan review, they also indicated that they may be providing transportation themselves. So the fact that, there are other transportation options besides just driving, kind of chips away a little bit at the justification for the need for this second parking.
Commissioner Murray?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I can see the points from both sides. I gotta look at this as the fact that it is a variance application, it has the criteria that we met in order to be approved, and I am getting stuck on the hardship or proof of the hardship at the current state of the project. It is a nice parking lot. It's a really nice landscaping design. It's a great job. Look at that. There's no question about that. And I can look at the assertion that right now that there's, again, I wish I had magic people. I mean, right now you look around and see there's plenty of on-street parking, which I drive through there definitely is. We also want to see that area revitalized. I would expect that more housing units would be developed on those vacant lots. I would expect that there would be more infill that would occur and more multi-units, more commercial space, right? I mean, that's the goal, which would increase the parking, which would fill up the on-street parking demands. Problem is, we're not there. There is no proof of demand for the additional parking lot. That's part of my struggle, I think, looking at this. Without understanding, or I guess seeing a breakdown of numbers of specific events that have X amount of attendees that require X amount of parking. That might have been helpful to look at, to argue why the parking lot's needed right now. Yeah, I'm just having a hard time seeing proof of the hardship that use that parking right now.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Mhm.
They can always come back in a year from now or so, if they have a need for it.
Yeah, and I think that's something the planning bureau would be happy to reconsider if, once this is constructed, there are creating issues of, like I said, people circling around, not being able to find stuff. We hear from the police, for example, or the fire department, which is right across the street, that, hey, I see people double parking on the sidewalk, whatever. Yeah, I think that would provide justification for the applicant's request, but right now it's very speculative about they're trying to meet a potential issue that may or may not arise in a couple of years. And so I think it's kind of hard to say that demands that action be taken
And I would only say that the applicant did a significant amount of research, obviously, into this project, has put a lot of time and effort and knows what their needs are. And that's why they're making this request. They wouldn't just ask for a surface parking lot just to have one. They need it. They know they need it. And to wait 2 years when there is a problem, to have to come back, get approval, construct the parking lot. I mean, and this is a project that the city welcomed, and that is, we want it to be a huge success. We don't want to start causing problems among the neighbors, among the neighborhoods, that we then have to come back and it's going to take us 2 years to fix that problem. So that's the consideration, and that's the reason for coming forward today, rather than 2 years from now.
I also think that, we actually had a resident that was actually coming and she was supposed to be here for the last meeting, but the last meeting got canceled. She wasn't able to get here tonight. She actually came to the meetings back in when we had it, and she was very vocal about the parking. And that's where there was a lot of discussion, both not only here at this commission, but also at the city council when it came to parking. And that it is a problem. And the response for that was, how do we figure that out? And how do we anticipate this? Kicking the can down the road. I mean, I think we have an opportunity to anticipate that there's a need, because we have the residents that are already saying that there's a problem with this here. And how do we anticipate it and then and not make more headway? And I have an issue where, if residents are now upset and angry and like, why didn't we already head this off before we waited 2 years to try to figure it out? So,
Did you, like you had?
Yeah, I want to take at least a shot at reframing the legal question for the applicant. The legal question isn't whether it's worthy or meritorious, and that is going to be the opening speech of the chairman of the zoning board to every applicant that comes in there. The question is whether an applicant has satisfied the 5-part legal standard test for a variance. I will be frank, if this was the presentation in front of zoning, and this is always a dress rehearsal, the applicant would lose that vote on whether hitting those 5-part legal tests. Of probably the most significant legal issue you have is that your deed is from August of 2022. And on the standard, you did not create the hardship for yourself. You're saying you have a land you can't use for anything else that you didn't own until 4 months ago. I don't think you're going to find a court case that says that's not creating your own problem. On the other hand, land use is a very interesting set of laws in Pennsylvania, and there's more than one way to solve a problem. I'm looking at what looks like an entity that owns both sides of Minnick Street from North 6th Street to Wallace Street. And the question then becomes, you have the right to petition to vacate the street. You vacate a street, consolidate your lots. Consolidate your lots, then I don't think there's a variance for anything. It's a discretionary function of the city council whether to grant street vacation. That's a different way down the same path, but whether that works or doesn't work, I can't predict that. But I'm just saying there's not only one path, but what you're asking them to do, which is challenging because we have much more meager means applicants that come to the city all the time who are denied relief because they haven't met the same test that you have. And granting someone relief who can't meet the test creates a very difficult position for the other, to put the boards in that are volunteer boards that have to uphold the law. And so I would say, I would encourage the applicant to at least table and withdraw this for the moment, sit down and rethink a little bit. No one, to a person, everyone in the city loves this project. I'm not a person who does not laud this project. But we still have to honor the law as it's written. There's other legal avenues as well. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, there are other legal avenues too. And I'm saying there are other ways to get done what you're doing. It's just this way, there is a very difficult test to overcome that we can't apply differently to different applicants.
Since I haven't gotten to the public yet, I'm gonna ask if there's any public or against it. Starts my light. Come back to Commissioner. Any other discussion?
This whole area is completely out of the, parking.
It's not even something.
It's not really parking. At this point in time.
There are 100 different proposals, and none of them are in front of anybody.
So
Sorry.
based on the recommendation of the solicitor, I mean, we will withdraw the application at this time and reconsider. Yes.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to, continue.
Or I think they're withdrawing.
No, withdraw, withdraw.
Withdraw, and refile.
No, I don't think you would be taking action with all.
Nope. No, it's there, it's there. withdrawal.
Thank you.
Any other business?
The only other business is that I'll be developing the 2023 meeting schedule, probably tomorrow and sending it out to all the various boards. So be looking for that. And if you could get back to me maybe by next week sometime, because I'd like to post, I'd like to advertise the legal in the Patriot News, enough in advance of the December 2nd deadline for the submittal deadline for the January meetings to give everybody a heads up. But I think that the planning commission meeting for January is tentatively scheduled for January 4th. I believe that's the way to say. So that'll still probably be there, so keep that in the back of your mind, but otherwise I'll be sending out that meeting schedule and get back to you as soon as possible. I'll make sure it gets out in the newspaper and end up on the city's website.
Is there any other things get for the order? Is there a motion for adjournment? Is there a second? Yeah.
I assume that's a 6-0 vote there.
I think ours is